Now, wagon mount case is a very important case for damages. Now, OT Limited was charterers by demise of the wagon mount and all winning vessel which was moored at the Sea Oars Wharf in Sydney Harbour. Okay, they were there for the purpose of taking all fuel. Now, however, due to the carelessness of OT Limited servants, a large quantity of fuel oil split into the water, and after a few hours it spread to MD Limited's wharf 600 feet away, where there was another ship. The Corrimal was under repair. Okay. Court found the fact that it was unforeseeable that the fuel oil would catch fire. Privy Council held that it is the foresight of the reasonable man which determined responsibility. The defendant was not liable. So basically, the test of remoteness is that of reasonable foreseeability, by which the kind of damage caused must be reasonably foreseeable by the defendant, which was not in the case. Okay. What about professional negligence? The law imposes an implied duty of care on professional because public profession of a skill is a representation or undertaking to everyone that any person in that profession possess certain ability or skill. So basically, professional must use reasonable care and skill, and there should not be negligence. Okay. So the duty of care on the part of professionals is sometimes not only owed to clients who engage them, but also to third parties. Now, there's another part of negligence which is very important, which is res ipsa loquitur. Now, to discharge the burden of proof, plaintiffs must prove that defendant had acted in a particular way or has omitted to do something, but this requirement is not absolute. So now we take, for example, needle had been left in child's stomach after operation. There will be a presumption that surgeon has been negligent, because you might not be able to tell the reason why was it left, why the needle was left in the child's stomach, except that that particular surgeon is negligent. Okay, we still on res ipsa loquitur. But what is res ipsa loquitur? It means the thing speaks for itself. Now, we can say that where the instrument of damage was under the defendant's sole control, and the occurrence is such that it would not have come about without carelessness, the preponderance of probability is that defendant must have been careless. Okay. Now, of course, defendant can give evidence to prove that he has discharged his liability. So basically, there's presumption that these things actually, basically, you need to prove certain things, right? Now, even if the thing speaks by itself, you must prove that the defendant has the sole control, and the occurrence is such that probability that the defendant have been careless. Okay. Now we look into this case. Scott and London and St. Catherine Docks Company, 1865. This is where the plaintiff was standing near the door of the defendant's warehouse. Several bags of sugar fell into him and injuring him. Court held the defendant was liable as the facts were sufficient to give rise to the inference that the defendant was negligent. Now, when is the maximum applicable? Okay, the most important requirement is that the damage or injury that has occurred must give rise to presumption that the defendant has been negligent, and this presumption must be clear and non-contradictory. So if more than one version of the accident is probable, basically the maxim of res ipsa loquitur is not applicable. So basically, there are 3 requirements before you can apply the maxim of res ipsa loquitur. Firstly, the thing that causes damage is under the defendant's control. Secondly, the damage would not occur if the defendant takes adequate precaution. And thirdly, the cause of accident is not known. Now, in the negligent actions, right, the burden of proof lies on the defendant to negate liability for particular tort. So how can they defend themselves? Okay, there are few things, but I will look into only 4 defenses: voluntary non-fit injuria, contributory negligence, mechanical defects, and exclusion clause. Yeah. Defense of voluntary is applicable to master and servant cases, games and sports, rescue, passengers. Okay, I take one part of this voluntary non-fit injuria on the part of passengers. Now we look into this case, Dan and Hamilton. Now plaintiff accepted a lift in a car driven by a drunk driver. Okay, she was injured as a result of his driving. So court held that defense of voluntary failed. Right? The facts show that although he was drunk, he was not so drunk as to be incapable of taking care. And the plaintiff was not deemed to have consented to carelessness on his part. Okay, so basically, you cannot claim voluntary. Okay, what is voluntary? Voluntary is voluntarily. That basically there's no defense in this case. Yeah. Okay, another part on defenses is contributory negligence. This is where the plaintiff take reasonable care. Okay, failure of the plaintiff to take reasonable care by he himself contributed to the injury. Now, what are the elements of contributory negligence? Plaintiff is required to act reasonably to avoid damage. Plaintiff himself has breached his duty by behaving unreasonably, and the act of plaintiff must be the cause of his injury. Okay. As for mechanical defects and inevitable accident, defense of mechanical defects has been held to be related to issue of inspection and maintenance of vehicle. Now, this defense only available a defendant who can prove through his record that the vehicle is free from defects. Now, look at in this case, Cik Ja binti Muhammad Arif and CC Scott. Plaintiff was a passenger in the defendant's car which crashed into a stationary car, causing plaintiff injury. Defendant gave evidence that 10 days before accident, he had sent the car to a competent motor repair company to repair the brakes. So a day before accident, plaintiff defendant went to fetch the car. 4 men tested the brakes again and found them in order. So on the day of accident, defendant had used the brakes several times and the brakes will work properly. So the court held that defects in the brakes were latent defects, and as defendant had employed a skilled neighbor, no negligence can be attributed to him. So basically, defendant was not liable. Okay, on the last part, we're going to look into defenses is exclusion clause. Now, can liability be excluded by giving notice of it to the plaintiff? Only if the clause is construed as clear and unambiguous, defendant may escape liability. Look at this case, Chin Hoi Nan and Comprehensive Auto Restoration Services, Bahad. Plaintiff car was damaged due to defendant's employee's negligence. There was a clause behind the receipt issued to the defendant. The company is not liable for any loss or damage whatsoever or to the vehicle, its accessories or content. Vehicles and goods are left at owner's risk. Court held the exemption clause did not exclude the defendants from the burden of proving that the damage to the car was not due to the negligence or misconduct. Defendant must show that they had exercised due diligence and care in handling the car, and since defendant had failed to do so, they were held liable to compensate the plaintiff. Okay, so that's all about negligence. Sorry if my voice is unclear. Hope to see you in tutorials. Thank you.